Hey, good morning, guys. So today we're going to go over two-step equations, and we're focusing on constants and the variable. This is very similar to the one-step equations, so just focus and you will be okay. First of all, I just want to remind you what a constant is. We have to know this to be able to understand what it is, okay? So let me make this a little bigger for you. So a constant here, this constant, oh no, hold on. Okay, so a constant here is a number without a variable. For instance, if we have a 5, right, that's a constant. It does not have a variable. If we have a negative 10, that's a constant. It does not have a variable. And then if we move on to a coefficient, all that means is that like you have a number with a variable. For instance, if I decided to add, let's say, an x to this right here, well, guess what? This 5 is now called a coefficient. What you do with the coefficient is you multiply 5 times whatever x is, okay? And then if I wanted to make this constant an actual coefficient as well, I can do the same thing. I can say, let's say it's negative 10b. So now, again, this negative 10 here becomes a coefficient, okay? That's a coefficient. A variable is a variable, an unknown number. And let's move on to inverse operations, right? The inverse operation is just means an operation that undoes each other. For instance, if you have addition like this, what's the opposite of addition? It's going to be subtraction, right? Or negative. And then if you have a, let's say, division, what's the inverse of division? Well, the inverse is going to be multiplication, right? And I'll use a different color, times, right? So the inverse just undoes one another, okay? So that's what it is. So isolated variable is our objective for today. We're gonna make x or b or whatever variable by itself. And then let's go down here. So first of all, excuse me, I need to drink some water. We have to understand how to do these things. A lot of you guys still don't understand how to do it. So let me start with the rules for integers. We know, okay, this section here, it's called combining, okay? Excuse me, guys. This is the section for combining integers. This section here is for multiplication and division. These two are different things. So when you take care, let me erase this. When you have two positives or two negatives, when you combine, you have to add. And then if you have, excuse me, opposite signs, you see how this has a big positive, a small negative, and this one on this row has a small negative and a big positive. These are opposite of each other. This is opposite of each other. And when you see opposite signs like this, you're going to subtract. Right? So let me give you some examples of what this can look like. So here's a good example of the first row right here, this first row. So if you have, oh my gosh, if you have a positive 5, right, and another positive 5, right, sometimes, yeah, if you have a positive 5 and a positive 5, let's say we erase the positive, we already know this is positive. Well, it says right here you add, and then when you add them, you're going to get what? A positive 10, okay? So that's this one right here. I checked this one off. A good example of this one right here is when you have something like this. If you have, let's say, a negative 5, right? And say, so you have a negative 4. Again, you have to add them, right, for this row. And when you add them, you're going to have more negatives. So it's going to be a negative 9, okay? Cool. Now, on this part right here, the blue, you're going to be like, okay, well, you know that when you have say a big positive, 6, right? A big positive and a small negative like 2, right? Well, it's going to be this row because the positive is bigger and the smaller negative. So you're going to subtract. Do you see here? Is it subtract? So 6 minus 2 is 4, right? And then what sign do you take? You take the sign of the bigger number, which is the 6 here. So it's going to be a positive. So it's already positive. So we're good, right? Now, if I rewrote this, like where the bigger positive is on the right, like this. So let's say I have 6, positive 6, right? And then a negative 3 like this. Look how this is. The 6 is still bigger than the negative 3, right? So again, we're going to subtract. We're going to use this row again. It's the same row because the 6 is bigger. So then 6 minus 3 is going to be 3. And then you take the sign of the larger number. So which one's the larger number, the positive or negative? Well, it's the positive, right? So it's going to be a positive 3. Okay. So there it is. And now for this row right here, it's a small negative. Small positive. So what's a small positive? Well, let's check it out. So a small positive will look like this. Let me put it right here because a little bit more room. So a small positive would be, let's say, a positive 2, right? And you have a big negative. Remember, we're doing this. So a big negative would be like a negative 6. So now, again, what do? You subtract the numbers first. Don't worry about the signs. 6 minus 2 is going to be 4, right? And then it's going to be a negative answer because you have a big negative. You take the bigger sign of the bigger number and you put it on your answer and you subtract those two. And vice versa, if you have negative 7, positive 2, right? You just kind of change orders, but you still have a big negative and a small positive. So 7 minus 2 is 5 and it's negative 5. Okay. So with that said, let's go over the one with multiplication and division. A lot of you guys complicate things, right? So this is combining. Multiplication and division, you can tell when it's multiplication and division, okay? So let me go ahead and erase some of these things right here. I'm gonna erase this. I'm gonna keep the other two because I'm gonna show you the differences. Okay, don't pay attention to all this. So now we know that when you multiply a positive and a positive, you get a positive, right? This is a different rule. And we know that it looks different, right? So if I said 5, compare this to the combining part right here. If I said, I'm going to put a line like this. So if I said 5 times 5, right? These are both positives. So you're going to use this rule right here, or this one right here, the rule. Positive times a positive will give you a positive 25, not 10, okay? The good thing about these two is that no matter if it's both positive, either way, you're going to get a positive answer. So it should be easy to remember. It's just this one you add when you're combining, and then this is what you're multiplying when you're multiplying. Now, you can also divide. Let's say if you take 5 and divide it by 5, a positive 5, divided by a positive 5, that's going to give you what? A positive 1, okay? Because you got to make sure you divide correctly, and it's still a positive, okay? So the rules work for both. And then let's move on to this next one right here. A negative and a negative, right? So let's say I did the similar to this one where it's a negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9, right? Because you add two negatives, you get negative for the combining one. Well, for this one here, it's going to be a little different. So if I take negative 5, multiply, okay, you know it's multiplication, times negative 4, it's going to be a what? Well, it says a negative times a negative will be a positive. So 5 times 4 is 20. And it's going to be a positive 20. So that's your answer, okay? It's different. You see how this is combining, right? You're going to add it and then get a negative. This one you're multiplying. You're going to multiply it and you're going to get a positive. So these two, a lot of you guys mess up on, so make sure that you pay attention to that very clearly, okay? You got to remember all this, okay? You have to remember. And then the last part here is this right here. This part right here. This is easy for multiplication and division, okay? And the reason why I say it's easy is because you have either way, if you multiply a positive and a negative, you'll always get a negative. And if you multiply the negative first times a positive, you will get a negative. So it doesn't really matter, okay? And it goes the same for division. So for instance, if I have a negative 5 times a positive 4, right? That's a negative and a positive, which is this one right here. You're still going to get a negative, which is a negative 20. What if I had like a positive, I don't know, 6 times a negative 2, right? So again, see the positives first, the negatives second. So I'm going to get a negative 12. Okay. And again, this is different, right? Now, if I divide, let's say I have a negative, I don't know, negative 10, and I divide it by a positive 2. Again, so you see how the positive, negative, it doesn't really matter what order. You're going to get a negative 5. Okay. You're dividing. You're not adding or nothing like that. Okay. So there you go. I play this over again. If you don't understand, just rewind it. Think about it. Okay. So I'm not going to do the problems here because you guys should be able to do it after I showed you that. So here are the problems. I didn't have to erase that, but you can always go back to the video. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the input model, right? So this is what you're going to be doing. We're going to solve two-step equations. So number 1 here, right? Number 1 says to do what? To use inverse operations, right? Plus or minus to make the constant a 0. Okay. So we know this is a constant right here, and I always do the line first. So I'm going to put a 0 down here to remind me that at the end of the day, this has to turn to a 0 because it's a constant. And then for number 2, it says that you want to use the inverse operation for division and multiplication to make the coefficient, right? The coefficient's that number right there in front of the variable, a 1. Okay, so currently it's not a 1. So guess what? I'm going to make sure to remind myself to make it a 1x. Okay, I don't have to put a 1 because I don't need to. So now these are just reminders. Let's make it happen. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 5 because the inverse of a positive or a plus is a negative. But also if you want to make it a 0, you just subtract 5 from it, right? And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So 9 minus 5 is going to give us what? 4. 5 minus 5 is going to give us 0. Okay. And then we just bring down the rest of the equation, the equal sign. And we bring down the 2x. Okay. And then we can use either one, plus or minus, because you're still going to give us the same answer when we combine these two. So we took care of the 0. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to erase the 0. So it became 0 like I wanted it to. So now I'm going to go ahead and do, add this 2 together. 2x plus 0 is 2x, right? And then I'll bring down the equal sign and then the 4. Now I still need to take care of this x. How do I make the 2x here into this 1x? Well, step 2 says if it's a multiplication or division, find the inverse. Earlier I said the coefficient and variable means it's multiplication. So what is the inverse of multiplication? Well, it is division. So I will divide this by 2. And the reason why is because 2 divided by 2 will give us what? A 1x, right? So let me erase that. And then also, before we move on, if I divide this by 2, I need to also divide the other side by 2. So now we have 2x divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2. You get 1x for this side. And then on the other side of the equation, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay, there you go. Let's do this one right here. So if we do this, the first of all, step 1 is to make the constant a 0. So let me go ahead and write a 0 down here. And then step 2 is to make what? The coefficient, right? A 1. So let me write a 1 right here. Or sorry, 1x. Oh, 1b, my bad, because it has a b right here. So a 1b right there. So again, let's start with the constants, right? Make this line. And then this is going to be a positive 4. And the reason why is because the opposite of a minus, right? Or the inverse operation of a minus is going to be a positive. And then if you do it to one side, you do it to the other side, plus 4. You get a 0 here. 6 plus 4 is 10. And then you want to bring down the equal sign, right? Right here, equal sign. Oh, my bad. Nope, don't put it there. Haha. You want to go ahead and pull it down. Put it down here, which is equal. And then you want to pull down 2b, which is right here. And then it doesn't matter which one you use. You can use minus if you want. It doesn't matter. So now you made it 0. So I'm going to erase that 0 away because it was just a reminder. And then 2b minus 0 is going to be 2b equals 10, right? And then how do I make this 2b into this 1b right here? Well, again, you have multiplication. So the inverse of multiplication is division, right? So I'm going to go ahead, use a different color, divided by 2, right? because I want it to be 1b, and then I do it to one side, do it to the other. So 2 divided by 2 is 1b, right? Let me erase this. I'm gonna put the answer up here because I'm running out of room. So it's gonna be 1b equals, what's 10 divided by 2? It's gonna be 2. So b equals 2. Now, how do we know if it's correct or not? Well, let me show you. We're gonna take this right here, this equation from the beginning, right here, and we're gonna plug in b, right? The unknown variable. We're gonna plug in that 2 for b right here, right? To know whether or not this is actually correct, because sometimes we get it wrong. So we're going to write 2b, or 2 times something, which is the 2 right here, and then minus 4 equals 6, right? So what goes in there is the 2, which replaces the b. So 2 times 2 is 4. Bring down the negative 4 equals 6. Oh, and I did something wrong. So 4 minus 4 is not 6. It's going to be 0 equal 6. See, I did something wrong. So let's go back here and look what I did wrong. So first of all, let's go look at this problem. Let me erase that line. So this is incorrect. So first of all, I need to add 4, right? Because I want to make a constant of 0. And then we had to add 4 here. So that equals 0. And then 6 plus the 4 is 10. And then we bring down the 2b. So 2b minus 0 is 2b, right? And then 10, yeah, so and then you get the 10 here, you bring down the 10 again. So now 2b divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is, 2b divided by 2 is 1b right here. Oops, 1b, right? 1b. 10 divided by 2 is what? It's 8. My bad. It's 8, okay? It should be 8. Oh, I messed up there. So now, let me go ahead and erase this right here. Let me do this over again. So now let me put 8 right here. So now you got 16 minus 4. Is that right? 5. What's wrong with me? It's 5. It's Mr. Hang is not doing so well. So b equals 5 because 10 divided by 2 is not 8. It's divided by 2 is 8. Okay? 5. There I go again. So now I'm going to put 5 here. Oh my gosh. You see that? You see why we check our answers? So then you're going to erase that. And then you know that 2 times 5 is 10. Minus 4 equals 6. And then 10 minus 4 is 6. And then equals 6. Therefore, this answer is correct. Oh my gosh. Okay? Hopefully you guys understand that. Like I said, rewind it if you need to. And I'll see you tomorrow or the next day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.